he considered himself to be the world's greatest failure, which was not a bad word in his vocabulary. It was the key to unlocking a future. Be do have.
I
So
think
can I
like,
share a quote and ask a question?
yeah.
I wish you would.
So it's a Martin Luther King quote. You guys may have heard this one before. Uh, he said, "If a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets, even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, 'Here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well.'" So my question is, if you're called to be that street sweeper and you went through all of that schooling and it's all useless, but it was part of the rite of passage of learning how to be part of a society of people who all have diverse skill sets and needs. And for a time, you are called to do something that doesn't require math or reading or maybe even social skills. Is that time diminished, or are you diminished for choosing to be the street sweeper when you're doing it that well?
That's a very, very finite, specific question. May I answer with a question?
Please.
How do you know that that's your highest and best use? And wouldn't it make more sense to just to take that and generalize it to, if you're brushing your teeth, be the best at it. If you're sweeping the streets, be the best at it. There are no small things to do in life. If you are cleaning out cat boxes, be the best at it, The always do the best you possibly can. So I love that quote. And what I like about it is the egalitarian approach, that in the end of time, all jobs needed to be done so that we could have what we have. There are no unimportant jobs.
Well, I guess the whole thing reminds me of, you know, when I think I read my first book by Thich Nhat Hanh, which was um, about meditation. So the Miracle of Mindfulness, I think that was the one.
Yes, I think it's Miracle of Mindfulness. Yep.
Yeah, and he talks about being present and actually, like, when you're washing the dishes, truly washing the dishes, like being there.
Hmm.
And as Ken was reading that quote, that's what I thought of.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe it is not wrong for him to do for the street sweeper to be the street sweeper if he's truly present and being that street sweeper, that he is truly present. He's doing while he's doing it, and so maybe there's nothing wrong with him not trying to be something else because he is doing that so, far more eloquently, let's say, than someone might do, or he might do something else.
Yeah.
I
So
was thinking too, like being a street sweeper, he must have either seen somebody that was street sweeping and wanted to learn how to do it, or he was taught that in a sort of school. Because I was thinking as everybody was talking, simple skills that I learned that I appreciate, like typing or how to file, because I don't think they teach those things anymore. Because I run up against people that you never start anything with the word "the," if you're going to file, kind of thing, and they don't teach those things anymore. And I learned copywriting in college, which I applied immediately after I graduated. It was what I wanted to do. So, I mean, it's all the skills that I wasn't necessarily knowing I was going to have, you know, be as of much use as they ended up being.
yeah.
But I think I appreciated all the skills. So, and I could see like street sweeping, and I think it's a great way to put it. Like, be the best at whatever you are curious at in the moment too.
So what's interesting to me about that quote is the word called. And like, to me, I that street sweeper, to me, he saw the joy in giving the gift to the world of a clean street,
Mm-hmm.
and then figured out how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that he was called to do it. It's like, like the only reason I decided to teach martial arts for a living and leave the military, which I enjoyed, and drop out of college before graduating was because I walked in before my class and I saw a bunch of kids grinning their ears off and moving and enthusiastic and having this joy. And I thought, I want to give that to kids. I want to be able to have help kids feel that way. And that was it. It was a calling. And there was a lot of adversity and a lot of judgment placed on me for choosing to do that instead of the things that people thought I should be doing. 'Cause I was smart enough that I could have done, like the school thing and gotten some, doctor, lawyer, whatever the things that people thought. But for me, I was drawn to, and I had no idea how to do it. I didn't have much martial arts skill. I had some teaching skill, but it was really just called to figure it out. So, and there were elements of my schooling that supported that desire. But really, what it was even back then, now it's even more so. If I wanted to be excellent at it, I just had to access the resources that would allow me to do it. And to me, the most important thing you can do in school is learn how to learn,
Mhm.
and frankly, that's Quester's way. We don't care what kids come in, or adults for that matter, what content they're consuming. We're just structuring it so that they learn how their brains work, how they best learn, and then they just do that over and over again. So now, so to me, that's the focus of school should be, how do you learn to be in charge and in control of your own ability to learn and interact, with the environment that you're called to interact in. If you want to be a lab worker, what do you need social skills for? If you want to sit in a cubicle and play with elements all day, you don't need to be good at communication. It's like, I know people like that.
Sorry, no, sorry, Ken, because that was my world.
Yeah,
That was my world. I
Yeah.
mean, when
yeah,
I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about you who didn't do when I did the whole school route and got the umpteenth degrees and and my parents were ones sitting there going like, you have a bachelor's, you have a master's, you have a diploma in tropical medicine, like you're teaching
yep,
yoga, like like where did you go wrong, kind of thing. But your feeling in and for martial arts was my feeling. My first feeling in yoga was like that real feeling of being truly connected and truly present, and really that integration of all the parts of myself, like
yeah,
mind, body, soul. And I sat there and said, I want to be able to give that to other people.
yeah.
And so then, and I'm sure I do use everything else I ever learned. It's not like it's wasteful, but yeah, but I think that, but that to me was a calling. It was like,
Hmm.
something I really, you know, it's a calling because I always say to people I teach because I love to teach.
Yeah.
That's the way I always felt about it. And the other thing is you were talking about the whole idea of kids and everything is, something I think we touched on last week is maintaining that sort of element of curiosity.
Hmm.
And so I think that that is not cultivated enough amongst education. Like it's almost downplayed to be curious and want to explore, because it doesn't fit into the curriculum
Well,
necessarily.
yeah, they have objectives, and it's so funny how you see that in any, I mean, if it's a company and the objective is a certain amount of profitability,
Hmm.
that can kind of subjugate things like creativity, or, one of the companies I'm working in right now, talking about meetings, and there's this dynamic between the meeting be about getting things done, but also because it's a startup, allowing creative space for conversation and collaboration. And there's kind of two perspectives on how what's important. And what we had to do was pierce through the either or mindset of this is more important because, or that's more important because, and instead go to a both and say these both have value. How do we integrate them? And once we did that, then you had the breakthrough. So yeah, so if you see in schooling, it's like, how do I get budget approval? How do I keep parents from calling lawyers to sue me for not doing enough for their kids? Or how do I get all of this done in and still have time to make dinner for my own kids? If they're going through all of that, there's no space left over for curiosity. They don't
No,
have time, you know. So, and part of that's, we're at a place right now, it's not new, from my experience anyway. It's just, we don't even agree what school is for. No one does. So, so how can you get clear on how to do what's best?
Well, I have a request. Do you still have that quote up?
Yes,
Will you read it again, please?
sure.
It's not a whole
If a
book.
man is, whoop, okay, are you ready? Yeah, and actually, if you want to find it, you can just Google MLK street sweeper. It comes right up. So, yeah. So, if a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets, even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, "Here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well."
All right. So interesting, interesting, interesting. So a calling can mean a lot of different things. And when we're talking about, Jan's comment about all the things that are taught in school, including all the way up to a PhD, and how useful is that actually? And that's kind of the question that comes all the way along through school. And can you even imagine if um, children were talked to as if they are the captains of industry and the captains of science and the captains of education and the captains of sport when they're 5 years old? And when were you first aware of excellence being part of that 12-year goal? Where was the opportunity for every single student in the building to experience the quest for excellence? So for me, that really didn't happen more than a half a dozen times. And where I really enjoyed myself, first it was sports. And then, believe it or not, it was being in musicals in high school. And I absolutely loved being a ham bone on the stage, doing stuff like West Side Story and Gypsy, and with Sky Masterson, Guys and Dolls, okay? And the singing, all of that stuff. And that was when somebody pointed at me and said, "We want you to do this role." We didn't try out for roles in our high school when you went, we went and we auditioned as a group, and then they walked around and said, "Okay, you're going to be Nathan Detroit. You're going to be the Cuban waiter," which is what I was in Guys and Dolls the first time. But the point is I just had a ball, the whole thing about working in a group of people, having fun, great energy, um, not being very good at the beginning. And then by the time I was a senior, really feeling like I had knocked the ball out of the park. I felt the same way about art. I had great experience in high school with art, putting images on a piece of paper. I thought I was going to probably end up being like a Madison Avenue advertising professional artist, right? And my dad thought I should go to engineering school. I was called, and I answered, and I went, and I failed. Engineering did not suit me at all. So it really took me out of that experience. I got to spend a lot of weekends with a really, really great early friend of the family that I had known since we were 3 or 4 years old, and we'd stayed in touch with. And I went to the University of Colorado from Connecticut. They lived in Denver, and so I spent a lot of weekends with them. And he was a business owner, and I'd ask him questions and pick his brain. I got more out of those conversations with him driving me back and forth than I got out of the classes that I went to or didn't go to, you know? And the neat part about school is the same thing. Did you guys know the Karate Kid, right?
Mhm.
Well, sort of 25 years earlier, there's a story about this boy. I think it's a short story, who goes and he finds this old man in a house, and he gets into a conversation with the old man, and he tells him that the kids at school are picking on him. He's about an 8-year-old or 10-year-old, whatever he is, and skinny beanpole, kind of funny looking, got a little bit of a buck tooth, all that sort of thing. And the old man says, "Okay, here's what I want you to do." He said, I got a pile over here. I need to have that wood all split so I can burn it.